standing at the border of what we used to know. 5 points in the darkness make a different kind of show. They say we're better together, but what do they know when the stars align differently down here below? And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. Remember all the stories that your granddad told about a republic that wouldn't be controlled. Now the suits in the city say we've all been sold, but there's a fire burning that just won't get old. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. They draw their lines on paper, we draw ours in the sand. Some dreams are getting closer, while some don't understand. Don't understand. The highway stretched forever toward a setting sun, where cattle graze on memories of battles won. They say unity's the answer, but maybe we're done with playing by the rules of the chosen ones. Oh, maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky. And maybe we'll rise when we cut all the ties. There's a flag that we fly under our own sky.
Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Late Night Coffee Talk. I was able to just slide in at the nick of time, and very glad that we are able to do this tonight. I think we got some good questions coming in, but we could always use a little bit more. So let me get the discussion of the housekeeping out of the way. For those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Daniel Miller, president of the Texas Nationalist Movement. And this is Late Night Coffee Talk. This is that time once a week where I take a break from everything that I'm working on, all of it toward Texas independence, obviously. But I take a break and come in here, fire up the camera, fire up the microphones, and I take your questions. Sometimes I come in with things on my mind. Sometimes I do not. Sometimes, most of the time, you are the one who's going to determine what we talk about tonight. And you do that through your questions. So just a reminder, if you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. And chat is active, so drop your questions in the chat. Kara's right on the other side of that wall over there, watching for your questions. She throws them in the queue, and then I answer them in, the best order that I can, right? Sometimes I try to clump them together. But anyway, you can drop it in the chat. Of course, Super Chat is active. So if you like what we're doing, be sure to drop some change in the old tip jar. And we really, really would appreciate it. There is a cost associated with doing this, these live streams, and sure would appreciate your support to make that happen. Additionally, if you're watching on Facebook, which oddly fewer and fewer of you are watching on Facebook, man, I'll get it out. Hang on. Let me fix this. Fewer and fewer people are watching on Facebook, but if you are on Facebook, drop your questions in the comments under this video. And of course, be sure to like and share it with your friends. Not that, Meta's new algorithm over there will let them see it, but, it's worth a shot, right? And of course, if you're watching on X, which happens to be the platform that most of you are watching on every week, be sure to drop your questions in the chat on the video. If you tweet at us or do any of that kind of stuff, it doesn't show up, so we don't have a way to process. So be sure you're on the video, drop it in the chat, and we'll see it and get it thrown over here. And let me make sure. Yeah, there we go. All right. And of course, as always, if you don't want to do it there, right, you don't want your question to be public, you can send an email, and the email address, there it is right there. You can email your questions to coffeetalk@thetnm.org. That's coffeetalk@thetnm.org. And it all goes over here, and, we try to balance it out, those that come in via chat versus those that come in via email. But definitely looking forward to your questions this week. I mean, it's been quite a bit to talk about, right? I mean, there's a lot going on, not just in Texas politics, but in the world of Texas, in the world of TNM. What's happening in the federal government. A lot of news has come out, particularly about one thing that's definitely caught my attention is all of this money that's being uncovered going out from USAID and all of these federal agencies to media outlets. So, when we talk about or have talked about in the past about mainstream media, a lot of those outlets essentially being state affiliated media, it was not a lie. Right. Yet again, we were right about these things. You got that. You got the fact that the Texas House seems to be on permanent vacation, which is, again, the age-old thing that we have to contend with. And it goes on and on. I mean, there's a lot to talk about. So I'm really looking forward to your questions. So be sure to drop them in the chat or email them in. So let's get down to it, right? Let's go over here and take one. Okay, sorry guys. I am looking. You guys are doing a bunch of shout outs. That's lovely. We ought to figure out some good way to feature these. That would be really nice. Okay, so let's get down to the brass tacks. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and take this one. I didn't think I was going to, because I actually covered this I think 2 live streams back. So I'm not gonna dive into it all again, right? But I am gonna tackle the question for anybody who may be watching tonight that is back after a long time, wants to know about this. I'm not gonna get into all the details because it would take me 2 hours to go through the entire saga, but here it is. So this is from Wayne. Wayne says, I supported Texit last time when the signatures were delivered to the state capitol a day late and electronic signatures weren't accepted for meaningless words on a ballot. Why would I contribute to an organization again that didn't exhibit the knowledge of legislative procedures and words on a ballot with no clear expectation of meaningful change? Many of the people that I got involved with Texit feel the same way I do and would appreciate some clarity. So, I initially thought, because, we've only been discussing this and keeping everyone informed via live streams, via public events, via emails, via articles, via, news coverage of this thing was absolutely insane. But here's what I wanted to do. I'm going to do this just really quickly because I mentioned it last week, and I told people where to go, but apparently I did not show them. So we're gonna cover that just really quickly. One of the things that we've always been, I think, we get complaints about over communicating. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and say this for those of you watching the live stream. If you are not plugged in to what we're doing, in other words, you think that, well, how come I never hear from y'all? Understand that it's not a problem on our end. Our default position is to over communicate, so much so that we get complaints that we over communicate. And the rationale behind it is, and the mantra is always, if we think it, if we speak it, if we do it, we want to communicate it. Now, granted, a lot of times bandwidth has something to do with that. We just don't have enough hours in the day to communicate every single solitary thing that we're doing. But anything that's major, for example, what the developments were with the Texit campaign, all throughout the Texit campaign, all the way through the tail end of it, even beyond, we were very open about everything that was happening. And it's the reason that we were being very open about it, beyond just sort of the normal default position, is that if given an opportunity, we know the opposition would try to spin, make it ridiculous. I mean, do their normal kind of propaganda techniques. And so our feeling on things like this is that if we don't tell our story, no one else will. Now, that being said, if you are not receiving communications, in other words, that whole thing exploded December of 2023, where we went to war essentially with the Republican Party of Texas because we believe that they were violating the law. And then the subsequent court cases, the court filings, and everything that happened beyond that, how we, worked like the devil to get new leadership in the Republican Party of Texas that would respect the law, right? Those sorts of things, okay? If you didn't see any of that, then understand it's not because we didn't communicate it. It's because you are not receiving our communications. And that could be for any number of reasons, right? Your emails, our emails to you are getting chucked in a spam folder, which happens often. You are not following us on our social media outlets. You're not going to the calendar to see where you can come connect with us in person. You are not going to the news site to see what we're posting. We're posting on average about 25 to 30 pieces of content just on the news site every single solitary month. So you're not plugged into TNM Social, where you could go at any time and connect with other TNM supporters, right? So it's not on us, right? You gotta, if you want the information and you want it in a timely manner, you got to stay plugged in, because we can't go and make 600,000 phone calls to have an hour-long conversation with everybody every time something happens. We just can't do it. It's not physically possible. So that being said, what I encourage people to do right here on the TNM News site, and I'm going to share this with you so you can see it. You know, there it is. And actually, let me solo that thing out for you. So it's full screen. There we go. So there's the TNM News site, right? Here's the search button. And you want to know what happened with the petition. Here are all the articles that we published about the petition, right? Here's, and you will see it come up. You're going to see the video of when we drop the signatures off at the Capitol, which is not specifically what you are talking about as far as the RPT's rejection. Going back to January the 11th of 2024, here's where we filed the temporary restraining order to try to halt the printing of the ballots and what the disposition of that was. Here's where we filed the emergency petition in the Texas Supreme Court against the Texas Republican Party's rejection. Here is the legal analysis on the petition and why the GOP's rejection letter was absolute and utter garbage. Here is our initial response to their rejection, which we issued on the 27th, right after they rejected it. Here's where we announced that we delivered the petition signatures, and actually this thing is an almost an hour-long podcast that details everything that we did. So, you know, you can go through these things. Here's the update of the breakdown that we did on the 15th ahead of it. Here's the drop off. And, you know, here's literally when we dropped it off, we did a live stream about that. So my point here is that all of the information is accessible, right? I mean, it's at the fingertips. And as a matter of fact, this is just from one section of the website. That doesn't include the media coverage that happened through all of those major media outlets. So, to the point of the question from Wayne, again, the idea that we somehow misread the law and dropped it off a day late is absolute and utter garbage. That is 1,000% factually incorrect, and it's something that we took them to task about, and to the point that they even dropped that from the objection. And on the digital signatures, if you want to take a look at that one, the legal analysis was very clear before we even launched the petition effort, including a ruling from the federal court that happened in a completely different case that authorized that authorized digital petition signatures. So we cover that in this entire article, what the legal analysis was and how it plays into the UETA in relation to the election code, and on and on and on, talking about, is there any conflict? And, you know, the fact of the matter is that even the GOP had to come off of their assertion, but here's the point, okay? And the point really, to get down to the question, let me just pull that back out. There we go. And now I'm back. But the point here is, beyond all of that information, right? Like I said, I'm not going to cover all of it again, but my point here in answering the question, Wayne, is that all of that information is there, right? We did everything by the letter of the law. It was the leadership of the Texas GOP at the time that violated the letter of the law. That's what happened. And it exposed something that was abundantly clear, which I mentioned even a couple of weeks ago in relation to Rule 44 censures related to these state reps that violated or broke caucus rules and voted for Dustin Burrows instead of David Cook, is that the timeline that is established for ballot challenges in the Texas election code is so short when coupled with court precedent in dealing with ballot challenges. It makes challenges almost impossible. So, you know, we filed a petition in district court. We pursued emergency relief in the Texas Supreme Court. And, you know, what essentially they communicated, right, through their actions was you had the clock run out on you. And so, yeah, we were extraordinarily incensed by the fact that you were disenfranchised. Anyone who signed that petition was disenfranchised. But at the end of the day, We did everything in our power that we could do. We followed the letter of the law. We did exactly what the law said we were supposed to do. Now, one of the things that I think is quite amazing about that is that it ultimately, along with probably many other things, led to the election of two Texas first pledge signers. Our pledge, two Texas first pledge signers getting elected as chairman and vice chairman of the Republican Party of Texas. That's huge, right? So did it affect some change? Did it put the question on the party primary ballot? No, it didn't. But did it have impacts beyond that? Absolutely it did. But again, can't litigate this for the next hour, 2 hours, or whatever it is. It's just a reminder, and the reason I brought this up is, guys, the resources and the tools and the communication are there. If you are not receiving communications from us, you've got to rectify that, right? It's not a situation where we can go in, as I stated, at the risk of being repetitive. We cannot pick up the phone and call 600,000 people to have hour-long conversations every single solitary day to let them know. I mean, can you imagine what the human capital would take to make something like that happen? How many people would it take to make something like that happen? So we have to use the tools to be able to communicate at scale. We use those tools, we use them quite effectively, but sometimes there are blockages between us and you. And so therefore, if this is really, really important, right? If Texas independence is foremost in your mind and you want answers to these questions, we've provided avenue after avenue after avenue. And even now, a question like that did not have to wait for a live stream. You can go to support.tnm.me, right? Or go to the main site and click on contact and can send that anytime you want to. I know this because, Kara and Regina and other volunteers handle inquiries every single solitary day from people that have questions very similar to this, where our people can point you to the resources where you can get that information. So, Wayne, hopefully that helps you out, helps you get to where you need to go to help understand a little bit more. I only scratched the surface for you. But feel free to go peruse. And if and again, anyone else that had that question, if you have any additional questions, don't hesitate to reach out. We're here and we've been very open and public about what we are doing and how we are doing it. So that being said, thank you very much, Wayne. All right. Hey, for those of you joining us, this is funny. Okay, so for those of you joining us late, let me remind you, drop your questions in the chat wherever you're watching this, YouTube, Facebook, X, and get your questions in, and you can drop them also right there. It's on the screen, man. The timing's good. Coffee Talk at thetnm.org. All right. Let's go take another one here. Sorry, guys, I'm having to get this. I'm doing razzle dazzle with the windows over here, so I've got to make absolutely sure. Oh, okay. This is a good one. Okay, this is from Travis. Travis says, what is it with the Texas House and not wanting to work? It's funny. I'm making a note here about another question that came in, and I don't want to let it get past me. Hang on. All right, let's get to it. Let me get to Travis's question. All right, so I laugh because people act like this is some sort of new phenomenon, right? Like, it doesn't seem like the Texas House doesn't want to work, but there are really two things at play. Okay, number one is the Texas House can't take up any bills for a while, right? On the calendar, it's such the way that it's set up. They really can't start hearing any real bills. However, committee assignments have been dragging feet. That is not new. These guys vote to take these weekends instead of, getting the committee assignments done and starting to refer bills to committees. I mean, there's things they could do. Now, hardcore Texas ledge wonks will tell you that this is not really as big an issue as everyone makes it out to be. And I would say that, well, maybe, right? Maybe to a certain extent, you might be right about how the calendar works, but here's the problem. It's not sufficient for the pace of the work that needs to be accomplished in the Texas House. You see, every session we are treated, at least since we've been dealing with the Texas legislature, we've been treated to these ridiculous gaps where they get sworn in. Remember, for those of you who don't know, civics lesson, the Texas legislature only meets for 140 days every other year, right? That's when they are technically on the clock to do things, okay? And so when they spend, the first 20 days doing a lot of nothing, well, now you really have a legislature that can meet for 100. I mean, that meets for 120 days. Now you start carving out the 3-day weekends that they take. Well, what that does ultimately is it means near the tail end of the session, when you've got thousands of pieces of legislation that have been filed, is it gives them an opportunity to utilize the calendar, to essentially utilize the clock to kill legislation that they don't like, right? So you can have a cadre, you could have a bad committee chair, or you have a committee of, some people that are maybe not looking out for the best interest of Texas, or you have the good old boy leadership sitting there in Austin on the Texas House, and all they have to do is slow walk something. All they have to do is slow it down. So ultimately, it gets killed by the clock and not by these politicians. And so when their constituents in the next election cycle come up and say, hey, how come we didn't get fill in the blank passed? They can say, instead of saying, well, it came up and I voted it down, they can say, you know what, I'm really on whatever side you're on, fill in the blank. But unfortunately, we ran out of time, right? And that becomes the mantra, that becomes the excuse, it becomes the scapegoat. And so, we've seen time and time again, good legislation, solid pro-Texas, what I would consider pro-sovereignty or pro-independence legislation, absolutely killed by the calendar because they run out of time. So right now, when they start assigning people to committees and start sending legislation, there will be a tendency for people to forget about this gap of time that happened where they got a 5-day weekend, and they're going to be pulling 3-day weekends. They're going to be taking Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays off pretty much for the duration of the thing, instead of working their butts off for that 140 days of concentrated time every 2 years. And so people will forget. And so the line that they use at the end of the session, that, hey, we ran out of time, it works on a lot of people. Well, we're sorry, we're a part-time legislature. That crap works. But understand it as a tool and a tactic on the House side that they can truncate essentially the session from 140 days to, call out whatever days they decide they want to go play grab fanny, right? And then come back to their districts and use the excuse, we ran out of time. And so I want you to know that every one of those people that voted for their 5-day weekend or their 3-day weekend, they are stealing time from you. They're stealing time from you because they were sent there to do their constitutional duty and meet for 140 days every other year to deal with legislation. And it becomes just another tool or a tactic for these guys. And I've seen it on social media. I don't know if you guys saw, but the official X account on TNM created a list of all the legislators' Twitter accounts that you can go sign up on that list, and you'll see all of their posts on X. And right now, some of these guys are feeling it. They're posting pictures. Oh, we're working so hard, making constituent calls and doing this and doing that. Well, at the end of the day, that's all things that could happen while you're actually conducting the people's business in the legislature. It's just, it's just not happening. So just remember this: when they tell you that they ran out of time, it was by design and it's on purpose. And honestly, that could change if they felt like they needed more time to work. That 140 days was insufficient. They could go. They could go pass. They could go write, file, and pass a constitutional amendment to make it to where they could start executing business a lot sooner. You know, I mean, that's just the way that it is. But what you got in a speaker and a leadership team right now is a continuation of what you had with Strauss and what you had with Dennis Bonnen and what you had with Dade. And now you've got that sort of same thing. And I'm going to tell you, I'm going to go ahead and make this. So Travis, I'm going to go ahead and give you this little piece of insight. I would not be so concerned. You know what this game is about, why they are quote unquote not wanting to work, voting themselves these days off, etc. You know what the game is there. But what you need to be watching for is look at the committee assignments. That when the committee assignments get announced, it's going to tell you everything you need to know about what's going to happen this session. And that is for real. That is just the way that it is. So anyway, Travis, thank you so much for your question. Okay. Interesting one. Lee asks, is the TNM versus Meta lawsuit still active? It is not. This is something that I covered in a live stream. Oh, God. Middle of last year, maybe in the fall. Where I talked about it, and no, it's not. What happened was, and I'll just give you a bit of a recap. So there was a section in the bill. Let me just, I'm going to try to encapsulate this because I'm going to tell you, if I don't self-edit here, I'm just going to get in the weeds, okay? The bottom line is that there was a loophole in the bill that had been passed by the Texas legislature that allowed people like us to sue social media companies that engaged in viewpoint censorship. There was a loophole you could drive a bus through, a loophole that was put in that bill by Brian Hughes and by Briscoe Cain. And it was evident, it was obvious, but it was done, right? Something that they subsequently fixed in this last session, but the law got struck down by the Supreme Court. So it really doesn't matter. It's kind of moot, right? But the point here is that because of that loophole, when we sued Meta over the issue of censorship, it wound up going to, they've got it removed to federal court. Right. So we were Texans suing under a Texas law, and it got sent to a federal court. They refused to kick it back to a state court where it rightly should have belonged because Meta has a presence in Texas, a significant presence in Texas. So it went to federal court. The federal judge heard it. Matter of fact, right over here, right? Judge Troncalli, Michael Troncalli, heard it, and Meta wanted to move it according to this forum selection clause in their terms of use. They wanted to move it to a federal court in San Francisco. And so the judge had a decision to make. Do Texans have relief in a Texas court, even if it is a federal court, under a Texas law, or can they be under forum selection, under this forum selection clause? Can they have this? Can a Texas law be adjudicated in a California court in San Francisco? And he wound up kicking it to San Francisco. And so ultimately we were not able to find local representation there. Plus the entire thing got hung up while what they call the net choice case was being heard by the federal government. So, you know, essentially it was stuck in a court in San Francisco. And because Meta had subsequently removed the restrictions, we went ahead and put in to quash the suit, right? No need to spend any money to go to San Francisco to defend a Texas law that was, you know, eventually found unconstitutional by the Texas Supreme Court, which that's a whole other conversation. But anyway, it's done, right? That thing is done. It just did not make any additional sense, and we bore out to be right, because the net choice case ultimately took the law and got rid of it. Right? It just said this law is no good. So, it sucked. It would have been really nice to be able to take Meta to the paint on that deal, but we got screwed. And oddly enough, not oddly, predictably enough, we got screwed by a federal court. What a shocker, right? So anyway, no, that suit is not active anymore. That is put to bed. All right. Let us take a look here, see what other questions we got, guys. If you got any more questions, drop them in the chat. Oh, it's the midway point. If you have any questions, drop them in the chat on YouTube, drop them in the comments on the Facebook video, or post them in the chat on X, wherever you're seeing this video. And we will certainly get to them. Oh, yeah. And don't forget, if you have questions, you can email them over to coffeetalk@vtnm.org. Okay. Let's get down here. Let's take another one via email. Sorry, guys. I'm having to get back over here to it. Okay. There we go. Yeah, this is a good one. Sorry, guys. I have to sift through, because we put that email out there. There's a lot of spam, right? I'm having to sift through ones that are like, did you receive our business proposal? No, I did not. Nor did I win the Nigerian lottery. It did not happen. Okay. I'm going to make a note of this so I don't lose it. Okay. And then we'll do this one over here. Okay. There we go. All right. This is a question from Tim. Tim says, you always refer to Texas as a nation. Why do you do that? Okay. Well, because it's true. Because it is. Right? These are always one of my favorite questions. So, Tim, this is going to be a fun one for me. And so I'm just going to thank you in advance for submitting it. So, look, it's true. If you look at the name of our organization, the Texas Nationalist Movement, there are people out there that want to demonize the word nationalism or nationalist. That's because they, I don't know, got dropped on their heads or something, or just sadly misinformed. But here's the reality of it, right? Nationalism is nothing more than a love for your nation, putting your nation first, right ahead of other nations. Okay, the opposite of nationalism is globalism or internationalism, or as we like to refer to it, Marxism. Okay, so when I refer to Texas as a nation, I do it from the understanding that has a fixed word. Unfortunately, we live in a day and age where language has been confused, terms have been conflated, and I hear it all the time. People interchangeably using the words nation and state and country as though they mean the same thing. But they have very, very different definitions. There is a delineation between them. If there was not, then you wouldn't have to have this concept of something called a nation state, a compound term that means the state or the official construct, body politic of a nation. Well, what is a nation? A nation is the people. Okay. So if we look at it from those terms, and my shorthand is always nation is the people, country is the land, and the state is the choice that nation has made to govern itself as a sovereign entity, a collective sovereign entity, right? So this is the nation state. And I will tell you, the concept of a nation state is not, people think that it must have existed for thousands of years, and it isn't. It's been something that really has begun to solidify in more recent centuries. There has been some existence. People talk about nations. You hear that all the time, but understanding conceptually what those mean, because if you have a term like nation, you have to be able to define it. And so, I refer to Texas as a nation because it is in fact a nation. But what that does is it helps you by understanding that Texas is a nation and why it's a nation. It's a people with a distinct population, a distinct demarcated territory, a unique body politic or political. So I mean, there's all of these criteria that go in. Now, granted, there is no single set of objective criteria for what that is, but the bottom line is that Texas checks all the boxes for what a nation is. And so, if that's the case, you have to look at the reality that if Texas is a nation, that means the United States of America is not a nation. I mean, that's why you will hear me refer to it as federal debt and not national debt. I don't refer to Star Spangled Banner as the national anthem. I refer to it as the federal anthem, right? Because the United States of America is an entity that is a collection of nation states, right? Because think about it, they're called states. Why aren't we called provinces or districts? Or, I mean, why have them at all, right? Well, that's because the union is a union of sovereign states. And I believe that the case is that they're nation states. And I think Texas definitely meets the criteria for a nation. Texans are a nation. Texas is a nation state. And so that's why you will hear me refer to it as a nation all the time. I don't refer to Texas is our state song. I refer to it as our national anthem, right? Because we're a nation. And I think it's important for people to understand that if we were pursuing independence and if we are pursuing independence and we do not acknowledge our inherent status as a nation, then we're kind of fighting a bit of a losing battle, right? If you're no different than what you're trying to separate from, then you really don't have much of a case to separate from. If we're just an amalgamation, a mishmash of, American, whatever that is, United Statesians, whatever you want to call it, then you got a lot tougher time. But if you could acknowledge and embrace the fact that Texas is in fact a nation, Texas is our nation state, this is our country, the territory that we live on, then independence makes a lot more sense. This is not, therefore, a secession. It's a withdrawal of membership in a political and economic union that no longer suits our needs. So that's why I refer to it as a nation, because in fact it is. If you look at our mission statement, it's very clear: to secure and protect the political, cultural, and economic independence of the nation of Texas. It is to literally be a Texas nationalist. The first acknowledgement you got to make is that Texas is a nation. Otherwise, you can't really be much of a Texas nationalist, can you? I mean, think about it. In any type of independence or nationalism movement over the last 100 years, I mean, Ireland, Irish independence. How could the Irish seek independence if they could not self-acknowledge their own nationhood? But they were able to understand their distinctiveness, and that really is what being a lot, not all of it, but a good part of what being a nation is. So, anyway, it's a great question. I appreciate that, Tim. All right, let's get over here and see what we got, because this is great. All right. So here's the deal. Here's what I'm going to do then. You shoot me a lot of comments, and they're all great and very appreciated, but you don't have a lot of questions tonight. So I'm cool with that. That's okay. That means we are keeping you informed, and our over communicating is working quite well. So I'll do this. I'll wrap up with a couple of things, and then I'll get back to work. Look, I want to take an opportunity really quickly to talk about, let's add this up there. Look at that. I'd like to take an opportunity to express my gratitude to the leadership team and the people there at our brand new first out of the gate for the reorganization county group there in Angelina County. Karen and I went to Lufkin last night, and spoke at their meeting, their kickoff meeting, and just was really appreciative of everyone who showed up, everyone who was very attentive with my exceedingly long remarks. My apologies. I don't get to address our people often enough, and just our people. I have to go address other people and say the same old thing. So I had a lot on my mind and I wanted to share it with you. But absolute congratulations to you guys for that. And I had to share this because look at this. We had that event, and right out of the gate in Newsweek, boom, we got an article in Newsweek about a T&M group launching in Angelina County. I mean, guys, is there? Let me just pull this out real quick because I just want to I just want to say this. If there is any doubt whatsoever in the minds of anyone that what we are doing is a thing, understand there's the cover of Newsweek, right? That was cool. That was a big deal. But when you've got major media outlets that don't have, like 50,000 subscriptions to, they don't get 50,000 federal subscribers. I think you guys maybe know what I'm talking about. But, when they're covering something seemingly as mundane to people as the start of the first launch of one of our county groups after a year-long reorganization, understand that they don't cover the mundane. I guarantee you they did not come down here and cover the agenda at the the Nederland Rotary Club this week, right? They just didn't do that. So this was huge. And when I got the message this morning that it was happening, I was excited to share it with organizational development. I think that it is absolutely phenomenal. And I think for those of you out there that are currently working toward organizing your counties, that are working with our organizational development team, this ought to light a fire under you. Because when I tell you and have told you for years that the world is watching what we are doing, that's no joke. And that means it's not just what Daniel Miller's doing or what Nate Smith is doing or what the national leadership team is doing. It's what we're all doing. And it matters, and it matters big. If there was not some potential impact from what they're seeing, what we did last night and organizing in Angelina County, then they wouldn't have spent the time to cover it. So I'm appreciative that they did. I'm appreciative they took the time to do it. I'm thankful for everyone who has applied to be leaders in the TNM to help organize their local counties. And I'm really thankful for those of you that are out there just putting the pedal to the metal and hitting it full throttle to get the job done, right? We've got 62, I believe, 62, 34 maybe counties that are currently in some status of organizing. And it's massive. I mean, can you imagine what that effort is like? Well, here's good news. You don't have to imagine. All you got to do is volunteer to be a part of it, and you can find out, right? Head over to local.tnm.me and find your county and go sign up. It's huge. Okay, let's get down to, here we go. One more question. Look at you. See, this is what happens. I say, you know what? You guys don't have a lot of questions tonight. I'm going to wrap this bad boy up, and boy, here they come. So I'm going to take this last one. Oh, well, I say last one. There's no telling. There may be more. And, I'm a sucker for these things. So here we go. So Terry wants to know, Terry, I met you. That is not your picture. That is Arnold Schwarzenegger. That is not you. Terry says, do you have any info on the Texas stock market? In fact, I do. Someone asked that last week about has there been any news or updates? And I said, I did not know anything in particular. And as soon as I got off of the live stream, I went and dug it up, and right immediately we posted this article. Well, I wouldn't say immediately, but I think the next morning, right? But here it is, the Texas Stock Exchange sets 2025 launch date. What we know about this is that basically they're going to do a two-phase launch, and the two-phase launch, and I don't know, I think we have the details in here. Yeah, here it is. They're going to have initial trading operations beginning in late 2025, and then they're going to set up, they're going to in 2026, early 20. So I'm guessing Q1 sometime. They're going to start full exchange services. So we're looking at this thing effectively being open at the tail end of this year. And look, I as I said last week, and I'm not going to be uber repetitive on this. But there is a lot of blowback about the various investors, and one of them being BlackRock, and I understand those concerns. But if BlackRock was the sole owner, I might be concerned. But at the end of the day, they are one of a bunch of investment companies that have put money up to see that the Texas Stock Exchange gets launched. The kinds of money that we're not going to get by putting starting a GoFundMe campaign. Right? It's just not going to be that way. You're going to have to look at large institutional investors, and that's exactly what happened. And they are one of them. Okay, so granted, all that stuff, the bad stuff about BlackRock, completely understand it, agree with it, not an issue. But is there a spillover into the operation of the Texas Stock Exchange? No, absolutely not. I don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. The Texas Stock Exchange is going to be a huge element for us to secure our economic independence. When you have a flood of capital coming into Texas, trading on the Texas Stock Exchange, it's going to be huge, and it means a lot for us. And I will tell you, you have to look at it through the lens of Texas nationalism, and understand that this moves us closer toward full independence than if we did not have it. Okay, so I gotta, any steps toward our full independence, rah, I'm cheering them on. So anyway, thank you for that question, Terry. Boy, look at these people bragging about their counties in the chat. I love that. That's lovely. All right. Well, folks, that is going to wrap it up. I'm going to get back to work. I've got a ton of stuff to do. By the way, oddly enough, this was recommended by, if you guys know, State Secession on Twitter or X. This book was recommended to me by him. He sent me excerpts of it, and I immediately went and got it. This is not a plug. This is not a sponsorship. But, I like to share anything good with it I'm doing. So this book is actually called The Morning After, and it's about the 1995 Quebec referendum. And it's a lot of massive inside information. And some of the excerpts I saw from it were really interesting in their parallels to how governments try to, those in power try to derail independence referendums. And so I'm really looking forward to tearing into that book, and I'll keep you guys posted on what it is. Yeah, and I just saw this. Hang on, I just saw this comment, so I got to throw it up there. Carl says Texas Stock Exchange plus Texas Bullion Depository helps Texas become independent 1,000%. Okay, and I will take this one really quickly. This is from Keith. Keith, boy, you got in just in the nick of time. Any reasoning why Abbott went to other countries to strengthen relations? I did a podcast about that. If you go to Texas, if you go to TNM, news.tnm.me, and go to the Texas News podcast. I'll pull it up on screen here in a second, and I'll show you. But I did a whole episode about this particular issue, and it is called. There it is. Stop it! Oh yeah, I got to put you back in the screen. There we go. It's this one here. It's called "Is Greg Abbott Preparing Texas to Leave the Union?" And I break it down. I talk about his multiple overseas trips, and I paint a bit of a picture for you to kind of show you perhaps what may be happening in regard to that issue. So be sure to check it out. All right. Anyway, thanks for that question, Keith. Okay, that was it. That was it. If you have any questions after this, be sure to email them to coffeetalk@tnm.org, and we'll get them in the queue for next week. But I have had all the questioning I can. I still have coffee left, but I got a lot of work to do tonight. So let me do this. Let me remind you, if you have not already pledged your support, head over to tnm.me/vote and pledge your support right now. Look, we need numbers. That's just what's got to happen, right? We got to have it. We need to connect with every Texan who believes that Texas should become a self-governing independent nation. Additionally, I got some really cool updates on this bad boy right here, the TNM Business Directory. Businesses are registering over there like a lot in high velocity. If you are a business owner and you have not registered, go over there and do that. We're getting ready to have the big official launch, and going to have some perks for the people that are already signed up over there. So get in now. You're essentially pre-registering, but go over there now. Go to business.tnm.me, get signed up. Additionally, back to what we were talking about earlier, the very first question from Wayne about, all the information that we communicate. And I talked about how we're at the mercy of the people that gatekeep information between us and you. The way you bypass that is you download the TNM app. Go to tnm.me/app and download it for Android and Apple, right? Get it downloaded. Got to be a registered supporter, right? So you'll get your login when you register your support. But that works on tnm.me/app, right? Or on what we call TNM Social. It works on TNM Social. You go log in, you have access to your county group, your House district group, your Senate group. Yeah, we have groups over there based off of your interests. And you can connect with all kinds of people, right? But more importantly, what it does for us is it means that when we have important news, it lands right in the palm of your hand. You don't have to worry about Google or Hotmail or Yahoo or any of the Microsoft, any of these guys spiking our emails in your spam boxes, are just not delivering. Look, I'm going to tell you, I saw the report yesterday, day before yesterday. If you've got a yahoo.com email address, you are not getting our emails, right? At least not most of them. And I saw that in the report where Yahoo is blocking emails from us to you, things that you subscribe for. We don't send people emails unless you ask for them, right? So it's happening. So you want to bypass that, go to tnm.me/app. And look, if you want to help keep this ship moving, we can float or we can sail, right? You take your pick. If you want us to float, then just kind of be in standby mode, right? But if you want us to go fast toward Texas independence, then we need your help. Go to donate.tnm.me and donate today. And look, 100% of your donation counts toward membership dues. So if you're not a member, you can go over there and donate. And as long as it's over the minimum for one of the memberships, you get a membership. You get membership credit for your donation, something we launched back in December. And I think, honestly, it's one of the coolest things we've ever done. I think it's extraordinarily generous because all those memberships come with different access and perks and things of that nature. So make sure you take care of that. Okay, my friends. Well, you know what that means. That means that it is time for us to say goodnight. Yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for joining me on this. I got to tell you, I really like being on this weekly schedule. You guys, you come with questions if you got them. If you don't have questions, that's fine. We talk about whatever until we're done talking or until I'm out of coffee, and then I get back to work. But I just want to be sure that I'm available to you guys on a regular basis like this. So if you do have questions, we can have these conversations and we can have them in a group setting. So I want to thank you guys for participating week in and week out. Thank you to those of you that are posting the great comments. Thank you to those of you that are submitting really thoughtful questions. They are very much appreciated. I don't know how much more gratitude I could express without making this weird. So I'm going to stop now and just wrap this up and get back to work. So I'm going to leave you with the words I leave you with every time we're together. They're not my words. They're the words of Sam Houston when he said that Texas will again lift its head and stand among the nations. I believe that time is now, and the question is, will you stand with her? Good night, everyone.
If you feel you've no real voice, and at the polls there's no good choice, and the best is a lesser evil, just who? And it is time for a real change. Instead of voting more of the same, only one solution restores the power of you. When Texan rights have been impaired, and it's gone on for many years, there's only one way left to correct it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. July the 4th we celebrate an exit of the United States from a British Empire that denied them representation. Yeah, and history repeats, they say. Britain's past became their fate when a Brexit vote restored Britain's status as a nation. When the Constitution is ignored, state sovereignty thrown overboard, and all attempts to restore it have been rejected. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. So high, no limits seem to apply. Is this the future we want for our Lone Star? What if tax dollars stayed in our state and Texans had the final say? Well, that's a future I'd be happy to vote for. You see corruption in D.C. or want a real tax decrease, there's only one solution left, you guessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Texas foreign policy? Are you tired of a government that acts so reckless? You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas, so pledge your vote today for Texas. Do you love this Lone Star State? Have countless reasons why it's great. Perhaps you believe that God blessed it. You know the Texans are the best to decide the future of Texas. Go pledge your vote today for Texas. Sign up at TexasNow.com.